2253, August 15th, 2026, right now marks 2,673 hours of progress on the Global Heart Simulation Journey. It has been figured out how to create post-processing that can use voxels for a fully 3D fog of war effect in Unreal Engine, and currently this seems to be working quite well as there are 8,000 voxels in the current level, and increasing that in order to stress test it. It still seems to be working quite well. And so at the current moment there are 64,000 voxels, and this is working quite well. However, with the current implementation there is a small issue in which going near the topmost voxel sort of causes pixels that are outside of the grid to be revealed, which shouldn't be happening, but with the material that's being used for this, the basic process is that a world physician needs to sort of figure out which voxel it belongs to, and there also is a UV conversion as the voxels are being stored in the texture and then uploaded to the material via the texture, and whatever sort of process is used for the conversion to UV, if the algorithm determines that a point in 3D space is outside of the grid, it creates a trash value, and apparently when that trash value is plugged into the UV conversion, for whatever reason, pixels outside of the grid correspond to the topmost voxel. So ideally, instead of having two separate functions, one for determining the UV and then returning a value for that, and then plugging that into the texture directly, what should instead be done is to sort of combine those functions, the one for the UV and the one for returning the color, into one, so that if it determines a pixel is outside of the grid, which the algorithm can determine that, then ideally just make sure that it is always masked. And besides that, there is another thing that should be looked into going forward, which is eliminating these sort of hard cutoffs, as currently this is using voxels, and a side effect of that is one can notice these hard cutoffs. And ideally what should happen is to, as an example here, combine this with a different post-processing material in order to show what the desired effect should be. And so the desired effect should be this sort of undulating distortion effect. And instead of these hard, sort of perfectly square cutoffs where the seen and unseen areas are, have it be this sort of wavy, undulating effect, which is basically a distortion that is being done. And normally with distortion effects, they are applied to UVs, but in this case, doing that wouldn't work, as it wouldn't be able to handle boundaries, multiplying UVs times a noise texture and some other scale values. So what's done here in order to create this effect is, instead of multiplying UVs, what it does is it checks if a pixel is to the left of the origin, and if it's to the left of that, then it colors it, it tints it. And in order to get this sort of undulating effect for the distortion, instead of multiplying noise times UVs, it multiplies the boundary. So instead of constantly checking against the origin, which would create a sharp straight line, a noise is applied to the boundary that it's being tested against, and then it's sort of scrolled, which creates this sort of different offsets, which allows for this sort of wavy effect. And so the intention going forward is to implement something similar into the edges of the voxels between the seen and unseen areas, so that it looks more smooth and natural instead of the hard cutoffs.